SSSVEDA day 29. I'm here making some coffee. Man, it's 12:10. It's after midnight. I'm making coffee, starting my day. Starting it with you. So there was one time I was working and I was calculating commissions and it was late. I should have been off at 4:30 and it was maybe 6 p.m. So there was a new accountant, and while I was calculating the commissions, I had to calculate commissions for about 40 people. And as I finished one person, I would send their Excel file to her so that she could review it, and then we would get them all together and then give them to the controller the next day for his review and approval. She had called me and asked me about a number, about a calculation, and I would explain it. 10 minutes later, another call. This person has something in their workbook that's not in everybody else's. Then I'd reply, well, that person was from a company that we bought and they had some peculiar sales processes. Some sales processes were outside of the normal process, and so I had to manually add them in, and that's how I opted to do it. Okay, thanks, she'd say and get off the phone. 10 minutes later, another call. Something looks different. Why is it different? And I'd explain that. Lord. So then she asked me, how do you know these numbers are right? Now it's getting to be after 8 o'clock, fooling with this person. How do I know if the numbers are right? What kind of question is that? I'd been doing this for about 9 months. There hadn't been any problems, any significant problems. If there had been problems, I caught them, and before they went for approval. So I don't get this. How do I know if the numbers are right? So okay, then she angled at it another way. How would you know if the numbers are wrong? What kind of question is that? How am I going to know if the numbers are wrong? It's getting on my nerves. Eventually, I could appreciate what she was asking me because she showed me crossfooting. And crossfooting is a way of accounting for all of the data that you started with. One very simple way of explaining that is if you have a lot of data that you have to move around, you got to peel it out this way and that way and group and calculate. In the end, pick 3 ways of adding up the data and see if they all equal each other. So if you have a lot of data, a lot of sales data, that then you have to break out into different regions and then split out things that don't get paid commissions on. Then you separate inside sales from outside sales. Now when everything is all said and done, can you account for everything that you started with? And that's what she was getting at by asking me this question about how do I know the numbers are right? How would I know if they're wrong? So I'm going to show you some simple examples of crossfooting when this coffee is done. So you can hear it boiling. So here is a real situation where this organization ran various assisted living houses around the city, and people would donate items to these houses. So there was an issue of, we had 10 clocks donated. Where did the clocks go? We don't have any here, and we don't know which houses they went to, or if they, was stolen or what. How can we track where this stuff went? So there's the first level, but then there's the cross-footing that lets you account for all of it and not just say where they went. So here's an example here of, we had 2 clocks donated, 1 clock donated, 5 clocks donated. And then here was some clocks taken out. Now we know where they went. Rick took 2. Morris took 2. Andrea took 1. Okay, great. We know where these clocks went. But we go in and look and we say we've got 1 clock in inventory. Okay, great. Here's a calculation for how many clocks were donated. 8 were donated. How many have been taken? 5 were taken. So we can account for 6 because 5 have been taken. We've got 1 in inventory. Now here's a cross-footing. Equals the total we can account for is taken and in inventory equals what was donated. False, because 6 does not equal 8. What's going on? There's 2 clocks that are just where. So in situations like this, you might have to say, this sometimes happens with nonprofits. People will donate junk to you. And you got to account for that, because for tax purposes, this person donated this stuff and they want to account for that donation on their taxes. And then the nonprofit has to account for having received that stuff. And sometimes people do donate junk that goes in the garbage. So now let's see what happens if we change our data. Equals sum ifs, sum range, comma, criteria range, comma, now we've accounted for everything, and our cross-footing says true. So we can take this a step further and add some conditional formatting. With the cell highlighted here, we're going to go up to highlight cell rules, text that contains true. Let's make that green. Okay. And if it contains false, then let's leave that light red. Okay. So it should be very obvious what we're dealing with. Now we have a color distinction. So what if Rick took 1 clock? We've got 1 in inventory and we threw away 2. Okay. Now this is turned red because we can account for 7 and we know 8 came in. So there you go. Cross-footing, keeping your data trustworthy, keeping everything integrated so you can account for it all. And if the forensic accountants show up, you might not go to jail.